Hi, welcome to Firepower and Firepower Threat Defense. In this section, we're going to cover the IPS policy. Let's go ahead and take a look. Here I'm at the FMC. You can see we're getting data. If you guys have been following along or if this is just your first video, then that's fine. But we have configured a couple devices, brought them in, and we've been blocking malware, blocking URL. That's kind of what we've been doing. So let's go ahead and get started with the IPS. We need to have an ACP. So I'll open the ACP. And then we're going to need the intrusion policy. So I've got the dashboard, which I don't need in this section. Close that out. So here's my ACP. Let's talk about this and how we're going to implement our IPS policy. Okay, there we go. So here is my access control policy, and you can see I have IPS policies implemented. Let me open up one more thing here. It's right there. And one of the things, is this IPS policy working? Yes. The answer is yes. We also have this one down here, the default action. If a packet gets all the way through, comes through pre-filter, doesn't get, dropped there, gets through security intelligence, doesn't get blacklisted there, goes through the rules, get all the way through and hit the default action. Not possible in our rule to hit the default action because I have a permit IP any at the end. So no matter what happens, it's going to be permitted. However, it's going to go through IPS and file policy. So what is it about this policy that I want to change and discuss? And the answer is we're using a Cisco authored policy. So we see this here. And the problem with using one of these is it's great. Go out and use it. You want things to drop. You're not going to do any administration on it. I don't understand IPS. I'm just going to push that out and let it do what it does. Right? I get people that do that, and that's fine. The problem is you could never stop it from dropping. You can't edit the policy. So when I go out to a customer the first day, I do create a file policy. So if you have seen the file policy, that's pretty much what I do at a customer. I push that out. I'm, of course, looking to detect files so I can come in the next day and help build my security policy. But in this case here, I also build an IPS policy, and here's what I do. I'm going to come out here. And before I do that, we can see that I just want to show you in this connection events in the rules is where it's going to show the actual IPS events will show here, the rules, but it's going to show us here that it hit a rule and blocked this. And so we should see actually the event. And if we go to table view, it takes a second to get up to table view. Table view is a good place to look for events. So there's an intrusion block right up there. And so we'll see it in here. Chicken killer. It's got intrusion event. It tells us this here and which rule triggered this event, right? So we usually work on IPS based on our network analysis. You'll see that in a section on that network analysis is how we work on and tweak our IPS policy. So in this case, watch this. And I do this at all my customers. I'm going to say pod 1920, IPS, and I can create thousands of IPS policies. I can only have one per rule, but I could have, dozens or hundreds per an ACP, depending on how many rules I have. Now, this is the question right here. This is what makes this different than a Cisco authored policy right here. I could say, you know what? I'm going to watch this for a while. I'm going to tweak the policy. I'm not going to drop any traffic. This is extremely important for a lot of my financial customers, for example, that don't want to drop any data. We tweak this. It could be a day to 3 months on one customer because we needed to get it really tweaked well where it wasn't dropping. There was no false positives. So we really took our time on that one. But usually I could get it done in most companies in a couple days. Kind of depends on their budget, right? So one of these things is you've got the name. I'm going to drop on the line. I'm going to give it a base policy of Cisco's security over connectivity. It's about 14,000 rules active out of the 40,000 rules. There's probably about 32, 33,000 on my system. Now, in this case here, there's some other ones in here. And the only one I use is security over connectivity or balance. I can do this. I see people do this. And what this does is says, we're going to use nothing. There's absolutely no rules active. You have to go turn them on. Now, if you're getting paid by the hour, this is what you want to do, because now you're just going to sit out there and you're going to enable and turn off rules based on operating systems and protocols and applications. So for example, if you only had Windows 10 and Internet Explorer, right? Those are the only rules you'd turn on, all the other ones are off. And then you would just tweak and play with those and based on your analysis. The problem with that, other than, most of us don't have that kind of time to just sit around and do this. The problem with this is that there's no dynamic update. So if there's a new attack that came out, right? And if it was Windows 10's Internet Explorer as our example, that would just, the attack could occur because it's not going to update automatically like the other ones are, like this one here, right? This is going to give me, so Cisco's going to update this whenever there's an attack or just, once a week or whenever they do it, right? Now I could say create and edit policy, but I don't want to right now. I'm just going to say create policy. I'm going to go ahead. It's going to take a couple minutes because I chose, the security over connectivity. If I choose balance, it's around 8,000 or 9,000 rules active, so it's not really that bad. The one that's connectivity over security is only like 400 or 500 rules. It's pretty much a waste just to have that policy, but they're all there for your use. So notice it says no access control policy. Use this. I've got a policy, not dropping the line. So let me tell you, when I go to a customer, I will do this, exactly this. What is there to edit? Nothing, because I need traffic. So I'm going to come back out here to my ACP, which is here. And I'm going to come down here. I'll cancel this rule and come back in. And now I would do this. I'm going to come here, go into inspection, take out the Cisco one and put mine in. Now, I'm going to put this one in. Is there any difference between this one and this one? As rules go, zero. There is zero difference right now. The difference is I can edit this one. And obviously, it's not going to drop any traffic. This can't be edited, and it'll only drop traffic. False positive or not, I can't do anything about it. So I'm going to create this. I just renamed this one, so now I can manage that policy. But right now, they're 100% the same. The thing I'm going to do is put in my variable set as well. Okay. And I'm going to say save. Now I could go ahead and deploy that. I just no sense in it now, but I can come in here and here's maybe I say I want on this rule here, I'm going to go ahead and put my policy. Now remember, I can create different policies and maybe I would have, whoops, I did the wrong thing. Notice it gave an error on that one because it doesn't want the file policy there. And I'll put this one here. There we go. There we go. Okay. Basically, what that said, and I could show you, is it just says, hey, we might not be able to determine if it matches that application, right, to be able to run that. So that's what that was telling me. But I can come under here and I could change all these, right, to mine. That way they're not dropping traffic, right, until I can get this tweaked, right? Now, the one thing I'm not going to change is this one up here. This one up here, because it's really, for me, it's just looking for CNCs for me. It's going to look for a lot more, but I'm just DNS over UDP, so it's going to just trigger mostly on CSCs. I like the bounce security and connectivity here. It works well for me, so we're going to go ahead and use that one. I'm going to go ahead and save this just because I can. It wasn't really necessary. And now let's go back out to take a look at our IPS policy. Now remember, this is going to be analyzed. We're gonna take the IPS policy and tweak the policy based on analysis. So now I got some intrusion blocks. So when we get to the network analysis section, I'll show you. We're going to come in here and I'm gonna look at these IPS and we're going to say, should this rule be disabled? Should it, instead of being an alert rule, should it be a drop rule? Instead of being a drop rule, should it be an alert rule? We cannot tell that until we see the data, right? Until we see the data. So let me come out here and look. There is right now. Let me show you something, and then we're going to go into the actual policy. But my day-by-day chores, I should say, is when you come in to do network analysis every day, you're going to come out here and go, wow, what is this? First thing I'm going to do is do rule documentation. I can edit the rule, and we're going to go through threshold and suppression here in a minute, but disable the rule, drop and generate events, so I can change the rule from here. I usually don't have to go out to my IPS policy to do IPS tweaking here. So here is my IPS policy. I'm going to go ahead and open it up, and we're going to get into some detail here. Quite a few rules in here. That's why it takes a while to load this one. And we're going to talk about how the IPS policy is created in layers. So here's my policy information. Here's the rules you can change. That's just a quick link to get you down to my changes we'll see. We'll talk about firepower recommendations later. The advanced settings used to be for my NAP. There's really nothing in there now, network analysis policy. But what we want to do is get down here to the actually policy layers. So here's the Cisco base layer. I can't do anything with this layer. I can only look at it. So I'm going to click on the rules, and notice I can't click on the box and change the state. I can't do anything with it here. This is how many rules I have on my FMC. Now, you see these are drop rules, drop and generate events, and this is a disabled rule. Why is this rule disabled? Why aren't they all just enabled? Let me click on this. The one thing I can do is click and look. Cisco will not, by default, ever enable a very high overhead rule. Even if you're having an attack and they send you out the latest thing to stop it, you'd have to go in and turn those rules on. They are not on. We'll see this. So all the rules that are off out of the 33,000, and let's go see what that is. It'll tell us right here. We have 12,745 rules enabled out of the 33,000. That's what it's telling us. The Cisco one has 12,241 drop and generate events. This is a good start. And you're like, well, I don't want it to drop that much. That's a lot of rules. Maybe I should go to balance. No, remember, we're not dropping anything. You want as many rules as possible enabled so you can get the most data and tweak your policy the fastest, right? And we have 500 generate events. Now, when I look at this, I've got this layer here. This is the Cisco layer. I can add to this by putting in my changes layer, and this is where my changes come in. This is how I edit it. I don't actually edit the Cisco layer. I edit my layer. So if we look at the rules here, which this is just a quick link down to here, so that, right, to get you there. Notice I can click on this, and I could change all this, right? Now, the one thing is, notice I can't see how it's set. Well, is this on or off? And what is this one, right? The only way to tell is to come down here, and whatever you're looking at would, when I click here, would stay the same. Notice that shows the check mark, and it shows me how the state is for that rule. It says this rule is set above this layer, below, or at this layer, right? So if I look here, we'll see them all pink because they're set below, or yellow because they're set below, right? So in this case here, I could change it. I could say, you know what? I know this one was disabled. Let's look, and I want it enabled. I want it to be at generate events. So we're going to make that, okay, it says okay. And now we'll see it, and it's set here. And if I come here, we wouldn't be able to see much different. Notice it's pink now. The rule state is set above this layer, and that's going to take precedence, right? That's why we have this layer. Now hold on, let's talk about these layers a little bit more. So in this case here, notice I have that my one rule I added. So now instead of 504 rules, these combine to actually create the policy. So in this case here, though, I could add a layer and then make it a shared layer. And I'm going to say this, you know, corp shared. Let me tell you why I would do this. So I'm going to create a shared layer. And so I was at a customer up in Canada, and they had 60,000 users. This was a big company. And the fact is when I created their IPS policy, and I'm going to move this down here. Why? Because my changes will take precedence over this layer. Anyways, when I went out there, I made probably over the few weeks I was there, 700, 800, 900 changes to the IPS policy. A lot of changes. And the fact is it was based on their environment. And every time they create an IPS policy, they'd probably have to go in and make those same changes. So what I did is I created this shared layer and made all the changes here. Now, when somebody creates an IPS policy, they just grab that layer, throw it in here, put my changes over here, and you could have multiple layers in here. And then throw it over here so I can, don't have to go through those same changes every time I add an IPS policy. In this case here, I'm not going to do that. Try to keep it simple here, and we'll just have my changes layer here. But that's a reason why I would have multiple layers.